Morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTube. I don't know if you can see the snow out there. Let me actually dim this camera. There we go. We can get a good view of the snow instead of looking at my ugly face. All right, so before we begin, I'd like to start off in prayer. Father, seeing this weather outside, just reminds us of how much power you have and how little we have. As it says, even the winds and the seas obey you. Um, just seeing, we try to control so many things in our lives, but we can't control the weather. Something so simple. And so if we can't even control that, how do we expect to control the rest of our lives? So just guide us and guide us in all of our ways, and just don't let us go astray, because you keep the weather in check. So in that same way, you're able to keep our lives in check too. I just ask this in Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, number 19. Let's get going. I don't even need to read the proverb today. We can just look at the snow. All right, let's go. Better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool. Also that the soul be without knowledge, it is not good, and he that hasteneth with his feet sinneth. The foolishness of man perverts his ways, and his heart fretteth against the Lord. Having money isn't what gets you anywhere in life. Like it's saying, it's better to be a poor person that walks with integrity. Even though you may not succeed, I guess you say, in life here, even though nothing may come of it down here, you may never get a reward for your good actions. It's just saying it's better to walk in integrity. It's saying, your soul without knowledge isn't good. It's not good to follow anything without having knowledge first. It's not good to have, a desire of anything without having the knowledge of it, without, seeking to understand more. And, if you, like it says, he that hastens with his feet sinneth. Don't be too quick to go to things. Don't be too fast. It's very easy to fall into sin when you start going too quickly in life. And how it's just saying, the foolishness of man in his heart, goes against the Lord. Sin is deep down in our hearts. Like almost everything we do is contrary to God. Sin is that deep rooted in humanity. It's that deep in us. And it's just, we have to realize that our own knowledge is not good at all. We have to be willing to turn away from what we think is right, and instead follow what God says. Wealth maketh many friends, but the poor is separated from his neighbor. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. Just saying, you won't escape in the end. No matter if it looks like you get away with it, it will come back to bite you, and it's not going to be pleasant in that day. Many will entreat the favor of the prince, and every man is a friend to him that giveth gifts. You say rich people have many friends because everyone almost wants a piece of their wealth. It's the thing I've heard as well. People who win the lottery, all of a sudden they get long lost relatives that come up out of everywhere because everybody wants to be a friend to whoever has a bunch of money. Everyone you suddenly haven't talked to in years will all of a sudden be calling you up asking for things because everyone wants a piece of it. Everyone suddenly, when you can have something to give them, when you have something to offer them, they're suddenly your best friend. All the brethren of the poor do hate him. How much more do his friends go far from him? He pursueth them with words, yet they are wanting to him. He that gaineth wisdom loveth his own soul, and he that keepeth understanding shall find good. I think it's almost saying poor as in not only money-wise, where, while, someone who's poor, people do often flee from them, someone who is foolish as well, like I guess you say poor in spirit, they're not going to have people coming to them for anything. When they're speaking, people are going to flee from them. People are going to, again, you don't want to keep company with foolish people because of how destructive they can be. If you're foolish, no matter how much you pursue somebody with words, it's not going to get anything. There's no reason for them to follow you. You have nothing to offer them. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish. Delight is not seemly for a fool, much less for a servant to have rule over princes. It's saying the same way that a servant isn't the one in command. A servant is not the master. In the same way, it's saying that delight and good things don't coincide with being a fool at all. You don't get luxurious things from being foolish. You don't get that stuff. It's one of those things that doesn't correlate at all. The discretion of a man defers his anger, and it is his glory to pass over a transgression. A king's wrath is as the roaring of a lion, but his favor is as dew upon the grass. It's saying using discretion or being slow to anger, being slow before, like it stated earlier, don't hasten to do things. Don't be too quick to make decisions. It's saying, using discretion, and using, waiting out a situation a bit can defer somebody's anger. And it's, it's glorious to pass over transgression, as it says. It's good to be willing to forgive someone's sins against you. And as it says, the king's wrath is as the roaring of a lion, but his favor is dew upon the grass. Pretty much being able to forgive somebody of something they've done against you is very good. It's very, like, it brings life to, I guess you say, the rest of life. Like, it enriches your life so much when you're able to forgive somebody of something they've done against you. A foolish son is the calamity of his father, and the contentions of a wife are continual dripping. This one, it says, in the Amplified Version, a self-confident and foolish son is the multiplied calamity of his father, and the contentions of a wife are like continual dripping of water through the chink of a roof. A foolish son multiplies the errors of his father. It's, I guess, a thing of almost like the sins of your father are passed down, the things that you do, your kids do in excess. And saying, the contentions of a wife, or, I guess you say the nagging of a wife, is just it's like dripping from water off a roof. It's constant irritation. Houses and riches are the inheritance of fathers, and a prudent wife is of the Lord. Saying, well, houses and riches and, things on this earth, you can be inherited from your ancestors. A wife is something that only God can give you. It's like we said in yesterday's proverb. It's like realizing that a spouse is something that can only come from God. It's not anything that can be gained through power here on this earth. Finding a companion is something that is purely grace from God. It's not anything that you can force along before it's time. Slothfulness casts into a deep sleep, and the idle soul shall suffer hunger. Being slothful and just not being willing to do anything, saying the idle soul will hunger. When you don't feed your soul with God's word, when you don't feed your soul with things that are good, when you're constantly just feeding it garbage or feeding it trash or just not feeding it at all, it'll hunger and you end up feeling empty because you will be. It's like if you don't feed your body's gonna slow down. It's gonna break down. In the same way, when you don't feed your spirit, it'll break down just as well. He that keepeth the commandment keepeth his own soul, but he that despises his ways shall die. He that hath pity upon the poor lendeth unto the Lord, and that which he hath given will he pay him more. When you lend money to the poor, when you give money to people who need it, since, again, everyone's made in the image of God, in a way you're giving it unto God. And it's saying, the Lord he'll repay it. He'll repay what you've done to other people. And while the payment isn't, what we might think of money here on this earth, it's not like if you give, a poor person $100, God's going to bless you with $200. It's not in that way, but it's that God will reward everybody for their faithfulness. God will reward everyone for what they're willing to give up and what they're willing to do here on earth for people. Chasten thy son while there is hope, and let not thy soul spare for his crying. A man of great wrath shall suffer punishment, for if thou deliver him, yet thou must do it again. It's saying, when you're raising children, you have to be willing to punish them when they do things wrong. And again, you don't utterly destroy your child. You don't beat your kid when they do something wrong, but you have to be willing to discipline them and, don't stop for their crying. Like, again, it's going to be hard. When your child is, when your child's crying or when your child wants something, it's being a good parent wanting to give it to them. But in that same way, God doesn't always give us what we ask him for. God doesn't always give us what we want because he realizes by keeping it from us, by, not always giving us everything we want, he knows what's actually good for us. In the same way, a child doesn't understand why they might, why they're not able to eat more candy, why they're not able to do this or that, why they can't run in the street. But if you don't punish your child for that, if you don't at least discipline them, like it says after here, if you have a man, that's done something tremendous, and if you deliver him from the punishment of it, if you don't give him any consequences, he's going to go back and do it again. And that's something that you have to learn as a child, and it's much easier to teach a child when they just have to go to their room instead of waiting for them to grow up and having the government have to do it, waiting for the police to have to do it for them. While it can seem harsh sometimes to discipline a kid, it's much better than letting authorities do it later on in their life. Hear counsel and receive instruction, that thou mayest be wise in thy latter end. There are many devices in a man's heart. Nevertheless, the counsel of the Lord, that shall stand. It's saying be willing to receive instruction so that, as you grow older, you'll be wiser. And it's saying, there's going to be many things that call out to you in the world. There's going to be many people, many ideas, many, companies that try to get your attention. But the Lord will always be able to stand in your mind. As long as you keep God at the forefront of your mind, you'll always be able to stand because of him. The desire of a man is his kindness, and the poor man is better than a liar. It's saying again, riches are not everything in this world. It's saying, a poor person is better than someone who lies. It's just realizing you can't take riches with you. The only thing that you're going to take with you, is the way you act in this life. So don't throw it all away just to gain riches down here. The fear of the Lord tends to life, and he that hath it shall abide satisfied. He shall not be visited with evil. The Amplified Version says here, the reverent, worshipping fear of the Lord leads to life, and he who has it rests satisfied. He cannot be visited with actual evil. I think what it means by actual evil is pretty much death. Down here we experience a form of evil. We experience a form of sin, and pretty much we experience Satan's attacks on us. But we don't experience what actual evil is. We don't experience actual death. And that is something that only comes from complete separation from God. And that's something that if you're willing to follow Christ, you will never experience. You will never experience what it's like to be completely separated from the Lord. A slothful man hides his hand in his bosom, and will not so much as bring it to his mouth again. It's saying someone is slothful, they won't even be willing to raise their hand back up again after they put it down. Smite a scorner, and the simple will beware. And reprove one that has understanding, and he will understand knowledge. It's saying if you punish people that do wrong, even the simple, even some other fools, they'll recognize something to it. But it's saying, someone who's truly wise, someone who has greater understanding, they'll be the ones that actually gain knowledge from it. Again, it goes back to that principle of someone who has a lot, more will be given to them. The more understanding someone has, the greater understanding they will get from situations. It's the idea of like a curve where that instead of it just going up on a straight angle, it goes higher and higher. It goes higher and higher very quickly. Like it's almost like if you're timing something by 2. Instead of it just going up 2, it's going up 2, then it's 4, then it's 8, then it's 16, then it's 32, then it's 64, and it keeps rising at such incremental amounts. I believe it's the same way of knowledge, where the more you learn, the easier it is to learn even more. He that wastes his father and chases away his mother is a son that causes shame and brings reproach. Cease, my son, to hear the instruction that causes to err from the words of knowledge. Again, it's honor your father and mother. It's not that you have to, you don't have to follow every word they say, but as it says, don't attack your father, don't, chase away your mother, don't bring violence upon them. Even if they don't have wisdom, even if what they're telling you isn't right, you're not supposed to get violent with them because they're the parents God's given you here on this earth. An ungodly witness scorns judgment, and the mouth of the wicked devours iniquity. Judgments are prepared for scorners, and stripes for the bats of fools. Judgment, the judgment God brings upon us is not meant for us. It's meant for sin. All of us stand before the judgment of God, but he will not bring down his judgment on anyone except sinners. He'll bring down his judgment on those who deserve the death penalty. The people who are sent to hell are the ones who actually deserve it for what they've done. And he says that, all of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. All of us deserve hell for what we've done. But the sacrifice of Jesus Christ is the payment for that. For what we've done, our sentence is death. But Jesus Christ came and paid the fine. The fine that we owe is our life. Christ already paid that fine. And in that way, we're able to escape God's judgment, and it's still righteous judgment. There is still the punishment for our sins. He hasn't just forsaken the law, but the law has been paid in full. And that's why the sacrifice of Christ was so necessary, because God doesn't break his own rules. God set rules down that sin has punishment. There is punishment to sin. He's not going to break that rule. But at the same time, God is such a loving God, he's willing to give us a way out. He was willing to give us a way out, which is for his son to come down and die on the cross in our place. No other worldview has the idea of the righteous judgment like that. They have different ideas of like punishment and retribution, but none of them come together in such a cohesive story that just fits together other than the truth of Christ, other than the truth of what God has actually done for us. So that's all I have for you today. I don't think, actually, wow, it got dark quick. You can't see the snow anymore. So sorry about that. But anyway, Lord willingly, I'll see you all tomorrow.